Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. My name is Kelly Reynolds. I host the Boobies and Noobies romance novel review podcast. I'm super excited to be back for our first Tit Talk of the year. If this is your first time joining us, just know that Tit Talk is usually a monthly panel discussion held here on YouTube. I later release these panels as podcast episodes. So if you're listening to the playback, welcome. Thank you for tuning into my podcast. I am joined today by these three lovely authors in honor of Galentine's Day. We are here to talk about the power of female friendships in romance novels.
Hell yeah.
Hey, so I'm going to go ahead and pass the baton off to each of them so they can introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about what they write. And in the meantime, feel free to, spam the chat with comments about how much you love them and their books. I'm going to pass it first over to Pippa.
Hi, I am Pippa Grant. I write romantic comedies that will make tears run down your leg. Yeah, that's the most interesting thing about me. What else do you want to know? I have a geriatric cat. I have teenagers and a younger kid too. And I love writing. And I wanted to be Beverly Cleary when I was 8 years old. And then I wanted to be Janet Ivanovich when I was 22. And now I have found like my own voice and my own style and where I fit in the world. And my husband retired from the military about 2 years ago, and we moved into our dream house, and that has just been awesome. So that, I guess there's a little bit more.
You had me at Janet Ivanovich because I will say she was one of my first forays into romance. And I think I thought of it more as mystery because I read the Stephanie Plum series.
Yeah.
But it led me to figure out that I like a little bit of romance in the genres that I read as well, and then enter the romance genre.
My daughter is in 5th grade and she has started being like, does that book have romance in it? And so I'm not even kidding you. She had a birthday and one of her friends came over with a present. She was like, this book has romance in it. You're going to love it.
That's so cute.
She opened up the Hunger Games.
I mean, they're not wrong.
It's not wrong.
That's a classic love triangle right there, girls.
Yeah.
She knows what's up. I love it. Well, perfect. Over to Daphne.
Hi, my name is Daphne Elliot. I'm just lucky to be here. I am a writer of contemporary romance. I worship the ground that these two particular goddesses walk on. So, like I said, I literally ran here from karate to join you. I live in New England with my husband, 2 small kids, 2 dogs, 22 backyard chickens, 2 hives of Italian honeybees. My life is chaos, and I enjoy writing really fun, low angst, small town romance featuring burly, bearded, flannel wearing lumberjacks.
Oh, the lumberjacks. And we love you for that, for giving us the lumberjacks. Also, I didn't know about the chickens.
That's so cool.
I have so many chickens, and sometimes they live in my house when they get injured, and then they smell and they walk around, and it's a whole thing. Yeah, we've got it all. I can't say no to my kids, so we have a lot of animals.
Oh my God. We had, I had Emma Berry on the podcast last year, and she talked about her chickens, and I told her the same thing I tell anybody who mentions chickens. If you have not seen it, there's a documentary called Chicken People.
Oh, I've seen it. I could probably quote Chicken People to you.
Thank you. And for anybody listening or watching, if you have not seen Chicken People, add it to your list. Because when I tell you, this is like best in show, dog show type of documentary, but it's poultry.
Mm-hmm.
Just let that marinate for a minute. Just really soak
I know what I'm doing when we're done.
Yeah, it's changed my life. So anyway, I am so appreciative, and I love talking to people who have chickens and sometimes call themselves chicken people. So thank you for that. Over to Kathryn.
Hey y'all, I'm Kathryn Nolan. I resident disaster bisexual. I write queer romance of the steamy variety. And I also write romantic suspense and romantic mystery series. Famously, I was able to write a series with Pippa called Blue Water Billionaires. I know there's like a lot of folks. We've got a lot of Blue Water fans who were checking in today, so we'll definitely be talking about the Bajillionaires today on the podcast. But I live in Philly. I live in South Philly with my husband, with my rescue dog, Walter. And we do a lot of traveling together. We're big like road trippers. So I get most of my inspiration for writing from like being on the road, from being on hiking trails. Like anytime I can like drive away from real life, I have so much inspiration. So
yeah, honestly, following Kathryn is worth it alone for the Walter dog content and the travel content, because you have literally lived the van life that so many people, I feel like you did it before it was cool.
Thank you for saying that. I believe we also did, because it's also like, it's more expensive now. For those who don't know, our camper van Morrison, was stolen last year. It's a pretty big tragedy for us.
R.I.P.
Because we had like built it out. We had like a bed in the back, and we lived in it for like 7 months. And then we would live in it off and on, whenever we were traveling. So we were like, oh, well, that's cool, because like we'll just like do another one. We can't. Everyone's like, oh, do you want to like purchase this van for me for like $50,000? And it's like, oh man, it's not what it used to be.
Will you give me the $50,000 to make it happen? Sure.
Yeah. So we will not be converting a van anytime soon. Although, good news, we are getting a car very soon. So your favorite nomads will be back on the road. We really thought we could like go without a car and just like, I don't know what, use our imagination to travel. But we are really excited to go and see some trees very soon.
Oh, trees. Mm-hmm. We love trees.
There are no trees in South Philly. I love South Philly. It's my favorite place. Famously, not a place of trees. If there is a tree, it's usually a place where we all place our trash. So, yeah, it's an important part of Block culture. This is the trash tree. Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, and I've only been to Philly the one time, but when I was there was when I got to meet Kathryn and Pippa in person.
Yeah.
After
that was fun.
Many years of online experiences. So that was a lot of fun. And I know Indies Invade Philly is a great event that I recommend to everybody. So if anybody's looking to, attend a book event this year, I do recommend Indies Invade Philly. They highlight indie authors. Mm-hmm. And this year's the 10th anniversary. So they're going to do it up right.
Oh, yeah, they really are. It's always been really great. Like the vibes are always really good. It's really well organized. There's always like really wonderful authors there. I've always had a blast. And even if you don't always attend, which I don't do, you can always hang out in the bar. So
there you go. There you go. Suze, I have to give a shout out to for mentioning Olympic National Park, home of Forks, as in Forks, Washington, as in the wonderful world of Twilight. Because I have been up there. I live in the Pacific Northwest, so I'm very familiar. I think we all are, though, after reading Twilight. Actually, that's the perfect segue into, before we talk about our own romances and, why we love our fabulous girl gangs and romances. I always am interested in everybody's romance origin story, especially since I know Pippa was talking about how her daughter's getting interested in romance. I feel like everybody has such a unique story when it comes to their relationship with romance, both as readers and writers. So anybody want to share, and I'll just put that out there for whoever wants to jump in first, how they came to be a romance reader and eventually writer?
Big question.
I can go first. I don't have to. I don't have to, but I can. Kelly, Janet Ivanovich was my intro as well. Mm-hmm. So when I was growing up, romance was shamed. But I loved reading, and I would read everything I got my hands on. Oh, thank you, Kelly. So and so I would read everything I got my hands on, but then middle school, high school, you get so busy, college, you get so busy. So the semester before I graduated college, I was visiting my husband. We dated long distance. So I was visiting him at his school because we didn't have spring break at the same time. And I went to the bookstore and I was like, oh, I could read something. I'm almost a college graduate now, and I don't have to I have way fewer credits this term. I don't have any homework. I could buy a book and read something. And so I just asked it was at Walden Books. That's how old I am.
Oh my
Walden
God.
Books.
Yes.
Damn.
So I went to Walden Books and like in the cute little
Walden.
mall, not the Mall of America in Minneapolis, but a different mall in Minneapolis. And I was like, I want to read something. And they were like, you have to read Janet Evanovich. And so I read, I think like 4 of the Stephanie Plum books were out, and I just started devouring them. And so like that led me to romance, and becoming a military wife led me to writing. It all sort of happened at the same time. And now like 20 something years later, here we are. So that was my story.
Also, how many books, Pippa?
How many books have I written?
Yeah.
I don't actually know. It's like 40 something.
Right. I feel like it's like 40.
It's definitely over 40 that I've written at this point.
Nice.
I think it's over 40 that I have published.
Yeah.
And what's fun is starting to see the foreign translations. I just got one in the mail. Actually, the first one I've ever gotten in the mail. I got one of my foreign translations in the mail this week, and I'm going to tell you the story because
it's in the mail to you?
Yeah, sometimes they'll mail you the hardback. So this is like
Ooh.
paperback. So this is like a
Okay.
hardback version of my book, The Last Eligible Billionaire. It was translated into Czech, and they mailed it to me. This is the first one I've ever gotten. And I opened it up, and on the inside cover, like I'm gonna text my kid and be like, "Bring me this. You have to see it." But then like I'll get you banned from YouTube. On the inside cover is like dog bones and dildos.
What?
Because there's a scene in the book where the dog steals somebody's dildo, and so they put the dogs and the dildos on the inside cover.
Amazing. 10 out of 10.
Beautiful. Yeah, so that's not how I came into romance. I'm sorry, sidetrack. I'm gonna be quiet now. Let somebody else talk.
I do appreciate that, though. I do appreciate that anecdote. I'm gonna, just so we don't have to fight over it. Kathryn, you go.
Yeah, I was just, when you were saying that, I was just having this like blast from the past. So I definitely was that kid, well, I would say a middle school, high schooler who hung out in the erotica section of Borders. Do you guys remember that little corner?
We got Borders after Walden Books went away.
Exactly. Yeah. And they had a really good like erotica section back in the day. And I'm sure it was like blended with romance, but at the time I think they were similar, like to me in my head. The romance, I always loved romance. I think, but originally what got me into it was I'm a pretty obsessive X-Files fan. X-Files taught me about sexual tension, or as someone famously said on Twitter, like the X-Files was like a straight relationship for queer people. Because I was like a baby bisexual. I was like, oh, I really am into how it's like, it's forbidden. Like it's all these like charged glances. There's rules.
That makes perfect sense. Like the minute you say that, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it's a straight relationship for queer people. Like where I was like, right, like they can't do it. They'll get in trouble. They have to like hide their feelings. But I also was really into this series of books called the Fearless series. I don't know if anyone read them when we were kids. Long-standing sexual tension between the main character, who was just like kick-ass. Like I think she like either couldn't die or couldn't feel pain. And one of her guy friends. Also, there was a lot of sexual tension in Sweet Valley High between Liz and Jess and their college boyfriend.
The amount of people who come on the podcast and talk about how Sweet Valley High was their introduction to romance is really wild.
Yeah, there was like necking. There was like necking in the high school ones. And I was always like, oh my God. I don't know. I was so horny. So like, I was just a horny kid. So I would always go to the erotica section. And then I was just thinking back to, this is like an old website. I don't know if anyone used to go on Literotica back in the day, an old
hell yeah
website I used to love. Yeah. So I feel like the way I came to it was like kind of like writing erotica, like in my journals and like playing around with it. And then I went to school partially for creative writing, but then I, like many writers, just like drop kicked that dream into a trash can and did something else for a long time. But I got back into it just by doing like NaNoWriMo and starting to write again. I guess that was 2015, 2016. I've been published ever since. So it's been really fun from being like horny kid at like horny queer kid at Borders to now I'm just like a horny queer adult.
I was going to say, just to horny kid to horny adult. And now I write books.
What a life.
Such a story. Daphne, how about you?
So my story is very similar. I think that I was a lifelong bookworm. I was also a lifelong writer who was always like finding weird journals with have-written books in them.
Yes.
And I had lots of ambitions, but, had to go get a serious career. So I went to law school and was a corporate lawyer for a very long time. And I never read romance because romance was not real literature. And oh my God. But looking back, so much of what I was consuming was romance. I started my teen years as a hardcore Austenite who would sit and stare at Colin Firth on my dorm's TV like over and over and over again. My pen name, Daphne Elliot, the Elliot comes from Anne Elliot, the heroine of Persuasion, which I will argue to my death is the greatest romance ever written. So come fight me, internet. Like, let's do this. But it wasn't until 2018 that I read my first contemporary romance. I had just given birth to my son, and anyone who's had a baby knows that you are up all damn night. And I needed a way. I was struggling with some postpartum depression. I had zero attention span to read any of the books I'd always been reading. Thank you. Wentworth is the best. I really wanted to name my son Frederick after Frederick Wentworth, but that my husband. So anyway, went out there, world. But I was trying to nurse late at night and I was trying to stay awake and I was really struggling to just like focus on anything. And a friend recommended a book to me, a book written by Kate Canterbury, who is an awesome,
big Kate
talented
fans on this podcast.
Kate.
Yeah. And I remember being like, damn, I didn't know books could be like this.
Which one? Which book?
Underneath It All, the first in her Walsh series.
Great.
Because it was set in Boston. I'm from Boston. And so I was like, okay,
Perfect.
So I started reading this book. Someone recommended it to me. It was like, you just need like something light. And I was like, okay, sure. Like, I can't really read a whole book right now, but whatever. So I sat there on my phone, nursing my son, like reading this book furiously. And so then I obviously read her entire backlist. And then I read Rock Bottom Girl, written by Lucy Score. And that book was like, books can be like this. And then I discovered Queen Pippa over here. And I read like Mr. McHottie and that whole series with the girl band. And I was like, and after that, I became like a 200 book a year reader because I was just like, this is the best thing ever. And I'm recommending books to all my friends and all sorts of other things. And all of a sudden, it felt like my discovering this world and following you all on social media and becoming part of this fandom. And I think that fandoms can be so beautiful and supportive and cathartic. It helps really unlock my own creativity again after a period of decades of not really engaging that. And so once I started flexing those muscles, things just kind of started happening. And I was like, I guess this is my job now. Okay. So here we are.
I was just tearing up because it's like when, like you put a book out in the world, right? And you're like, this might touch somebody, like it might make somebody happy. But then you're like, you realize what impact a book can have on the whole entire world in ways that you never, ever, ever knew. And like, just the whole idea that like, we can all inspire other people to write, just, it gives me chills. It makes me so happy.
It's so true. No, it's so true. And I feel like that from like all the wonderful people I've talked to and books I've read over the years. I mean, we're in our almost 6 years of Boobies and Noobies. And it's, I've interviewed hundreds of authors at this point, and we've read hundreds of books at this point. And I've been a romance reader since I was 18, and I picked up my first Rachel Gibson book from my mom's stack in the garage. Which, by the way, I recently I realized recently, I was like, we got rid of like a ton of books. I say we, and my mom will probably watch this later. She and my dad got rid of a ton of books that I had saved in our garage, and I was pissed. And so I've basically been trying to like build back the books that they got rid of. And I was like, you know what? I have not read those first few romances that made me fall in love with it since I was 18. And so I recently bought copies of that original Rachel Gibson book that I read, which is
Which one was it?
I'm in no mood for love.
Awesome.
And in fact, it's so funny. Just putting this together, it's part of a series, and I forget the name of the series, but it is about a group of girlfriends.
Are they all writers? Was that the series about all of them were writers and they all wrote a different thing? Oh, I remember that series.
One of them's like a reporter. One of them writes romance novels, I think. So so I just bought paperbacks of that series, and I have them. and I want to do a podcast episode that's revisiting your original romance reads. Like, what is it that got you into reading romance? And does it still, hold up with you? Do you still love it as much as you did before? But
that's a great idea.
That's another podcast for another day.
Funny. I was thinking about Jennifer Crusie just the other day.
I've been building those back too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep, I've got those out on the bookshelf as well. And she was also, along with, I saw somebody in the comments mention Nora Roberts. The other Kelly mentioned Nora Roberts.
Yeah, the queen.
Yeah, I've got the Bride Quartet. That was like a big series for me. Also about a group of girlfriends. And yeah, like it really is funny when I do think back on like a lot of the romances that really hooked me into the genre. They were contemporary rom-coms, and more often than not, they did feature a group of girlfriends that just either worked together or had each other's backs, no matter what. So it's serendipitous that we're talking about that today. So Galentine's Day, first of all. Happy Galentine's to everybody. Happy Palentine's. I'm heading to a Palentine's Day party this afternoon, so I'm very excited.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. So, but I think one of the things that doesn't get talked about in romance enough is the focus on female friendships. And it's funny to me because I do feel like it's something present in a lot of romance novels. We see a lot of like threads in series that kind of, draw the books together. And a lot of the times it's either a family, in a sports romance, it might be the team. In a motorcycle romance, it's the club. But I do feel like both across contemporary, paranormal, and historical, we see a lot of the ties being friendships, and more often than not, female friendships. So anybody want to touch on a little bit why female friendships are so important to you personally in romance novels? When reading or crafting.
It's so weird. I don't usually have opinions all the time, and I'm like, I have an opinion. No, I think that women supporting each other is such an amazing thing. And I don't like it when the women are the people who are I don't like it when there's like cheating in a book and you find out that like she blames the other woman for what her man did. Like that annoys me personally. That's one of my hot button issues. And I'm like, if we women stuck together, we could rule the world. And so I see romance novels presenting healthy, strong female friendships as setting that example for what we can do when we all come together and support each other instead of thinking of each other as the enemy. So that's
I agree.
I was going to say, Kathryn. I was going to say like I think because Pippa and I think have a lot of like kind of like shared opinions on this, because one of the things I don't like in books is just like girl hate. And that isn't to say like I've certainly written like women who are the antagonists, women who are villains. Like I love a morally gray villain, a complicated antagonist. Like I've certainly written characters with like maternal relationships where the mom is, someone you love, but who's someone who's also like really tough to love. So like this isn't to say that like I think every like woman or like femme person in books like needs to be like a perfect angel, because there's also a danger there, right, to making women not be like real flawed and messy people. But it's in romances where like if it's like say it's a romance with like a male female like romantic dynamic, and it's like any woman that the hero speaks to is somehow immediately a threat, someone to be made fun of, someone to like look down upon. This also gets into like some of the slut shaming that happens like within romance, which I'm like also not about. So I think those two things are really tied together. And so I'd much rather read a book like, for example, like when we wrote like Blue Water Billionaires, some of us certainly had women in the books who were like antagonists or were kind of flawed people, but there wasn't like a sense of all women around me are like threats to me, and the only people I want in my life is like my boyfriend. I think it's like the idea, this is I think something that like Sarah McLean talks about in her podcast, that like with the heroine's journey, a lot of times your endpoint is community, not just romance. And to me, community saves us every time. And so to have a community is the goal in the end, right? You know, that's kind of
I think so.
Yeah. Well, you want him to, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, you want him to deserve her. And if she has a solid group of girlfriends behind her who are like, make sure he deserves you. Like, you know, that just, that makes my little heart happy.
Yeah. And I was just going to say, I love that you mentioned the heroine's journey, because I think it's actually, I don't think enough people know about that. I think, at least in my experience, like we learned about the hero's journey in like, you know, 8th grade. And so if people aren't familiar with the heroine's journey, it's a book by Maureen Murdoch. I definitely recommend checking it out, whether you're a writer or not, because I do think something that we talk a lot about on the podcast, and I mean, it's going to happen during this discussion, especially when we're talking about female friendships and women supporting women. I always bring up misogyny when we're talking on this podcast, like, and I will stand by that in a minute. But I will say, I think we a lot of us learn the hero's journey, but there's never a discussion about the heroine's journey, and reading it and then applying it to romance novels, even as a reader, I think will make you a more intentional and conscientious reader when you're dissecting romance novels. So helpful resource, I do recommend. But Daphne?
Yeah, so I really believe that supportive, respectful friendships are and can be just as valuable as romantic partnerships in our lives. And I think particularly as we grow older and we move into different seasons of our lives and different challenges arise, I think that there's room for complex, layered, supportive relationships with lots of different people, not just your chosen partners, whatever. And so I think for me, you know, I'm really big on found family in my books, because we can choose who we surround ourselves with, and we can choose who enriches our lives. And I think for me, a happily ever after is not about getting some dude to put a ring on it. It's about working through whatever emotional journey you're on in that book and getting to a place of peace and joy and excitement about the next chapter. And that usually involves, it's not just a 2-person game, that usually involves other things. So, you know, the female main characters in books or femme main characters can have, you know, they can go through career transformations. They can go through personal transformations. They may adopt a dog, and that might really change their lives. And I sob at whatever books when there's dog adoption. But I think that it's just, friendships are such a rich part of life. And I think as women, you know, so often, you know, my favorite, you know, I'm going to just say it, but so often the patriarchy pits us against each other and sees us as competition.
Bingo.
Absolutely agreed.
Right.
Get
Absolutely
your bingo
agreed.
boards out, because here it comes, patriarchy.
Like dicks are not scarce. Like you can go find some if you need to. Like this idea that we should all be competing is really, really unhelpful. And so I just feel like we need to refocus and understand that collectively we can do so much more. And that's why I love writing female relationships romance. And that's why I wrote a series of interconnected romances with my 3 best writer friends about best friends. And I'm assuming that's why you guys did it too, because working with one another, building one another up, and building something together is infinitely more satisfying than doing it all on your own. And not that we ever do any of this on our own, right? Like this is not, people just think you sit in your house and like pump out a book and like alone. Like, that's the truth. I have like, you know, like I have various emotional and professional supports that get me there. But I think that we, again, want to celebrate our awesomeness, our collective awesomeness, and understand that when we work together and we support one another, that it's just going to be better, and it makes your life richer, and it makes those happily ever afters even better for the reader.
Agreed.
There's nothing more. There's nothing more romantic than community, right? There's nothing more romantic than characters who have experienced like loneliness or have been ostracized, like finding the people who love them for who they are, who love them unconditionally. I think you're right. It's like romance and the happily ever after is really this like kind of like textured fabric that we build, where it's not just a singular couple or, you know, 3 people, however many people are in the couple, but it's like, it's actually about like who got them there, who keeps them there, who,
well, and
you know,
can I just say, like, as
trust them
somebody who is still like in the dating market,
Mhm.
that's a really attractive quality in real life as well,
Yeah.
because I love to hear when men tell me about, oh yeah, you know, my friend blah 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 and I do this, my friend blah 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 and I do this. I'm part of a bowling league. I do this. I go to trivia nights on
Mhm.
Mondays. Also love to hear when men are also friends with other women. I
Yeah.
know, I think again, because we've been so conditioned to see that as a red flag, based on the idea of women competing with women, specifically for a man's attention, that's we've gotten tropes like that in our real life and in our media. That's, you know, the ex, the friend who wants to be more than friends, you know, and it's so gross. And in
Mhm.
reality, I think that's a great sign of somebody who is able to maintain these friendships, male or female, you know, whoever you are, with other people, that they can have this community and you can be a part of that, but you also don't have to be their entire everything. And to me,
Right.
those are the romances
Yes.
I love to read about, is you add something to my life, you add value to my life, but you're not my entire life.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes.
Totally. Yeah. And that stuff too, like I always hated that stuff about like, oh, can men and women like really be friends? Because it's also like an extremely inherently like biphobic statement. Like people have said that to me before. And I'm like, well, as like a bi person or like a pan person, like, do I just get like no friends because I'm just like so thirsty for every gender who walks past me that I can't be friends with them? Like people would say that to me all the time. And especially when I was younger, and I'd be like, well, then who are my friends? Like I
Kathryn,
can't have
don't you
friends.
know that means you're attracted to every single person you
Every
meet?
person.
Come on.
Every person. Yeah, it's
Has
like
nothing to do with personality at all.
right, yeah, exactly. That's why I always made me laugh, because I was like, and yet I'm friends with so many women, and I somehow managed to be respectful. You know, I don't know. It always makes me laugh because it also is such a like binary and very like
Yes.
heteronormative way of viewing our world, where
Mhm.
it's like men and women are only sex objects and also mates to each other, you know, like biologically there's like nothing else between them, when like our world is, it's
That's
like, man, like
sad.
liberate your mind, Kevin. Like our world's so much more complicated and beautiful
It's-
than that.
It's always Kevin. It's always Kevin, right? Like, no, and I have to say this, it's not an episode of Boobies and Noobies if we don't mention the patriarchy at least once. And I know I kind of touched on it a little bit, but it made me think of there was a trend happening on Threads recently, which I don't know if everybody's on Threads yet. It's just
I
one
try to
more
not be.
platform.
I
It's
am not-
wild.
no.
My feed is wild. I'm like, how is this every argument ever had on Twitter and Facebook in the last 10 years all condensed into like
all
5
in
minutes?
one. All in
But
one.
it
It's
keeps
every
going.
day. Every day there's a new one. Although I will say I kind of love what it is so far, because I feel like it's nowhere near as like toxic as Twitter did eventually become. But you know, it's only a matter of time.
Yeah.
But I did like this trend that was happening on there, that was, you want controversy? Fine. And then people gave their so-called controversial opinions about romance. And it made me think of the one that I did, which was, you want controversy? Fine. Romance novels are rife with internalized misogyny. And saying that does not make me a romance novel hater. I love to read romance. I will continue to read and write romance. However, I am critical of the genre because I love it so much and I want to see it and the people who write and read it do better. And I think that kind of also ties into the idea that, you know, not only have we like had these roles created for men and women by the patriarchy, but at the same time, when women uphold those, we're a part of the problem as well. Like, and it's recognizing that, and in how we talk about it and how we write characters who experience it, that you know, we recognize how we can do better and create characters who have friendships that aren't about jealousy and aren't about toxicity. So I think the 3 of you have done amazing things with your female characters and their friendships that aren't inherently toxic. So
I feel like I'm still unlearning lessons that were ingrained in
Every
the back
day.
of my head from childhood. So I'm
Every
like,
day.
I'm going to screw this up one day, but I'm going to be very gracious and take the feedback when it comes to me. Because that's how you learn.
Exactly.
You can't learn to do better if you don't listen.
Oh yeah, no, and I don't expect everybody to know it. I certainly don't. Like you said, I think it's an ongoing process of unlearning things and learning how to do better. And sometimes that does rely on making mistakes or that thank God for beta readers, sensitivity readers, editors who, everybody has their own lived experience. And yes, we do have some shared experiences, but those are great people to surround yourself with because they can maybe add something that you didn't think about. And that helps you kind of put it in a new perspective. So yeah, we're trying to do better every day. I'd like to hope so.
Well, and that's a great example because we are still unlearning things. And just this week, I had an aha moment about internalized misogyny in myself and my own books because I was watching a TikTok by a friend of mine, Sarah Pearson, who is a book talker extraordinaire, and she went on a rant because she does like this incredible theatrical, gorgeous makeup, and she went on a rant about how in romance novels, the woman who gets up and does a full face of makeup and looks amazing is always the villainess. She's the one you leave for the fresh woman who just wakes up like this and like, oh, I don't put any effort. And she went on this really astute rant. And I sat there being like, I've done this.
Sure.
Oh, you look beautiful without makeup. Yeah, I probably do. But guess what? I'm going to put on anyway because I want to.
Right.
And
absolutely.
For me.
I just sat there with my mouth open and I was like, and I'm going back to my draft and we are going to make some tweaks because you're absolutely right. Do you like high heels? Do you spend a lot of time on your hair? Do you want to wear false eyelashes? Do you get Botox or breast implants? Then you are a romance villainess.
I'm glad you brought that up though.
The true love of this man because you're just not natural.
I'm glad you brought that up.
2024.
I was literally going to add on to it plastic surgery.
Because
that's the other thing that I have noticed. And ironically, you don't read a lot of romance, I think, featuring characters who have had plastic surgery for that very reason.
Right.
But that is one that I've thought about recently. And the other trope that just ticks me off all the time is the bad ex, the jealous ex, the evil ex that, steals the kids or trapped him or cheated on him with his best friend, no matter what it is. Not that we can't have, exes in romance, and some of them are terrible. And so, but I just like to see, I get really excited when I do read a romance where the ex, and specifically the ex-girlfriend, is a human and not just an evil monster. Like I really love those. I really do.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point because I think that with the patriarchy and with everything else, homophobia and white supremacy, it's like we're all the fish in the water. The fish doesn't realize it's in the water, but the poison's the water. And so like once you realize that, then obviously it's our responsibility to like work hard to uproot it. But it sneaks in like all the time, and the villainous woman who has like a full face of makeup and like wears high heels, because the heroine of romance, it's always like she had a natural beauty. It's like she didn't even know how. She didn't even know how beautiful
she was.
Yeah. Bullshit. Like, I'm a hot girl. I know I'm hot. Like, I'm never like, I didn't realize how hot I am. Like, every day I'm like, damn, you're hot. No,
it's so true. And there's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with being like, damn, you look hot. Like, it's so weird to me to be like.
And
Until
in
the
fact,
hero told me I had like no value.
In fact, no, until a man told you specifically, not anybody, specifically a man. No, it reminds me of one of my favorite, and this will be a good way for us to dive into talking about the female friendships that we write in our books. But one of my favorite female friendships to date is the movie Booksmart.
Yes.
I love that movie. Yes. Wait, Pippa, have you seen Booksmart?
No,
I haven't seen it. Watch it like right now. It's so.
I'm making around. I'm like,
Chicken People is first, and then Booksmart.
Hold on. I'm making myself a note on my computer because I have no I don't have a notebook next to me, which is crazy,
Okay.
chicken people. Book smart. I know what I'm doing the rest of the day, guys.
Yeah, no,
it makes me put you in such a good mood.
It's so true. Well, and it's the way that those two girls gas each other up. Like every time they see him, they'll be like, look at you. You look so hot. Oh my God. Have we ever been this hot? It kind of reminds me, one of my favorite all-time movies is Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion.
Oh, also,
and I think they have a friendship like that as well, where I mean, there's literally an exchange where they're like, look how cute I look. This is the cutest we've ever looked. We're not being conceited. We're just being honest. Like, and it's so true. There's nothing wrong with that. So anyway, a couple of my favorite, female friendships in media. So, but let's talk about you and your books. Now, I know Pippa and Kathryn, you partook in a series called The Blue Water Billionaires, or as we fondly refer to as the Vagillionaires. So I do think that's worth talking about, but I know that, Pippa, you also have, your latest series is the 3 BFFs and a wedding. So I think,
and I was telling you before we came on, when you asked me to be on, I was like, oh, the Vagillionaires. And then like literally 30 minutes before we started, I was like, I actually have a series of books called the 3 BFFs
that are coming out
BFFs
now.
Like the third one, the final one just dropped like 3 weeks ago.
And so funny. Yeah. So, and I know that a lot of the people who are joining us here are probably already familiar with some of the books that you'll mention, but I'm also going to mute myself and drop some titles and links in the chat. So if anybody wants to revisit these books, they can. So let's go Pippa, Kathryn, Daphne, and just feel free to tell us a little bit about your girl gangs that you've written or you're writing.
Nice. So I wrote a series called The 3 BFFs and a Wedding, and this is the first one, The Worst Wedding Date. And it's literally about one of the 3 BFFs. She's having a destination wedding and her brother is not being the best. So she asks one of her 2 BFFs to like keep an eye on him so that he doesn't distract and disrupt the wedding because the fiance really doesn't like him. So it's a whole series of what happens at the wedding and directly as a result of everything that happens at a wedding. And the 3 women were super close friends, and you see them go through their own struggles as friends because they think that they're doing good things for each other. And at times that's exactly what causes the problems. So it's like best of intentions and the results are not, like the consequences are totally unintended and way worse than you think it will be. So one of the things I love about that is the idea that like you do have rough times as friends, but you're tight enough to stick through it and get through it all together. And I had so much fun writing that. Honestly, like when I started my Pippa Grant journey, I had the idea of doing, I wanted to write an all-girl boy band cover band. I wanted to write 4 books about each of the women in an all-girl boy band cover band in New York City, because I thought that would be super fun. And so funny. The first book came out and I instantly started getting messages. We want the heroines' brothers, because they were like massive twin tanks, hockey playing goofballs. Right. And I was like, I wanted to write about the 4 girlfriends, but also like, if you want to build a career, you have to like go where people are asking you to go. And so it ended up, I did finish the series within a year and a half. I think I did finish the 4 BFF or the 4 women in the girl band. But it hit me like a stack of bricks when people started saying, we want the brothers, we want the brothers. I was like, people really like the male centric like the boy groups more than the girl groups, but I'm going to keep writing the girl groups because I love the girl groups. In fact, the heroine in my book that's coming out in April, her girl group is essentially the Golden Girls. She's like 28.
Amazing.
And her BFFs are like the Golden Girls.
And you know what? I would actually say that, and this is so hard to predict because obviously like what's trending in the world in romance like changes constantly. I would actually venture to say that I think there's a lot more romance readers today specifically looking for the girl groups than they are looking for the for the boy groups. It's so funny.
I launched in September October of 2017. So it's been a little over 6 years, right? And I feel like the world has changed so much, and we have learned so much about female friendships and about how the patriarchy pits us against each other, and the younger generations especially. And I feel so old when I say that. Like, I am not old, but I am just a little seasoned. I'm like, yeah, like, I feel like they get it. I talk to my kids and their friends, and I'm like, they get it so much more. They have a higher standard for those other friendships in books and in real life than I think I did, for sure. But like, I see a therapist about all of that, you know?
Yeah.
But then the Blue Water Billionaires was the other like big one. And that was so much fun to write. And it was just magical watching, like, talking about how to do it behind the scenes with Kathryn and with Lucy and Claire. And then Kathryn, I think you were the only one who weren't there. Claire and Lucy and I were at a conference together when Lucy's book came out.
Yes.
And we were like FaceTiming you and being like, look at this, the book is out. We're celebrating together. And it was so amazing.
Was it that Indies and Babe where we met Kelly, where all 4 of us were there, and
all 4 of you
just in a row? Yeah.
Your book came out the day before Pippa, and all 4 of us were in the top 100 on Amazon. That was such a special.
Still gives me chills.
I know. That was
really
such a special day.
The mom-coms are doing that too, aren't they, Daphne?
They have been. Yeah, I'm completely overwhelmed. My book came out Thursday, and I can't even believe it. And I just want to say, mom-coms. So for those of you listening, I just released a book on Thursday, and it is book 4 in a series called The Mom-Coms, which is a series of single mom rom-coms about 4 best friends who decide to move in together and collectively raise their children in the Mommune. And the Mommune is
idea.
The Mommune is a falling down Boston brownstone that like has exposed wires and a raccoon living in the chimney, and they're all just. There are these 4 best friends, and I wrote it with my 3 author besties, Brittany Nicole, Jenny Barra, and Swati MH. And these women like are my people. And we'd been talking about doing something for a while, and we'd thrown around these different ideas, and we just realized we are all moms. We are all people who had full-time professional careers and were writing and have been like on this journey together. And we just wanted to write something together because it would be fun, but also create a world and create real flawed people who have actual legitimate challenges in their lives and show how women can build each other up and have each other's backs. And so we created this world of the brownstone. We have our four moms and their wild brood of children, and the level of shenanigans is, but I'm sure, as you guys know, when you group write a series, like, stuff goes crazy because the text chains were like, okay, what if so-and-so's a ventriloquist and she can throw her voice across the room? What if the kids don't like the healthy smoothies that the health nut mom makes, and so they start feeding them to the raccoon family? Like, what if, the little boy attacks everyone who came from the house with a Nerf gun? Like, it just kept spiraling, and it spirals, and like the drunken late night FaceTimes, and like, we're doing this. And, I feel so blessed and so privileged to do this really fun project. And it was hard. It took a year. The books are not standalones. They are deeply interconnected. All of our characters appear. We're drafting with each other. We're editing with each other. But we wanted to show real, supportive, flawed female friendship on the page. And honestly, for those of you who have children, being a parent is inherently hilarious. Your world changes in a way. Things come out of my mouth that I never in 1,000 years thought I would. It is perfectly legitimate for me to turn to another adult and be like, had to hide the Spider-Man pajamas because he tried to wear them to school 4 days in a row. And like, I'm afraid they were going to call social services. So they just like got lost and we don't know where the Spider-Man is. Like, again, old Daphne, who lived an adult functional life, would be like, are you okay? But mom Daphne is like, this is my life.
Right, yeah.
Like, there is so much comedic gold to be mined with motherhood. And also, from a more feminist perspective, single dads are a thing in romance. Single dads are sexy. Single dads are hot. Oh my God, he picked this kid up from school. That's amazing. Single moms are usually like semi-tragic figures who need to be rescued by a man. And so
misogyny.
Oh my God.
Our women rescue themselves and each other. And then, a bunch of hot dudes, including a couple of pro athletes, a billionaire, they just happen to pop in and they all move into the house because the way we set up the plot is that as people fall in love, like their new men have to move into this crazy house with all the kids.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And they have to babysit on Thursday nights because the moms have wine and book club. And it just becomes this big complex found family where everybody's looking out for each other, and the billionaire is doing the toddler's laundry, and it's just part of the fun.
And that's becoming more and more real these days too, is like multi-generational living. Or I mean, how many women do you know who are like, oh yeah, if my husband dies, like I'm never getting married again. Like me and my gals are moving to a farm.
I have that group. Yeah, that concept is so amazing. I've been watching all of the books come out because we've been putting them in the Bangin' Hot Rom-Com book club newsletter.
Thank you, Jody, for being so generous.
Yeah, Jody, my PA, has just been amazing. Like I saw the first one come through, and I texted Jody, and I was like, I need this book. This concept is amazing. It's like, I'm getting this
whatever you want. You just say the word. Like I will,
I read it on KU and then I buy it
to you. Like if you need me to.
Well, and it reminds me of the 𝑉𝒐𝒍𝒊𝒅𝒔, but add in some kids and move it to a brownstone.
And I'm going to be very honest. We were 1000% inspired by you guys.
That's awesome.
We want to be you.
Cool.
And we had all read the Blue Water Billionaires. I probably read each book 4 times. I love them.
Oh.
I mean, guys, first of all, you had me at Lady Billionaire. I was like, Lady Billionaire, one click.
That was the whole reason we did it. Because I was like,
that was Pippa's idea, guys.
Can I use all of my words on Tit Talk?
I as whatever words you want.
Where the fuck are the Lady Billionaires? I was just ranting, and Claire and Kathryn and Lucy are like, do you want to maybe do something about this instead of just bitching about it, Pippa?
Yeah, it was like such a cool concept to like create these women who like inherently understood each other and like what they, because I guess that's also part of friendship too, is like, it's like, that's the safe space. That's where you break down. That's where you share like your complicated feelings about it. Because that's certainly like, I mean, like Luna experiences this where it's like, all of a sudden she's a billionaire, she's running this company, and it's like, it is different. Her day-to-day is not as exciting as it was. It's a lot more like admin or whatever. It's like, these are things that like, you wouldn't complain about on social media because it's like, oh, poor billionaire. But you can tell your friends that like, sometimes this doesn't look like what I thought it would look like. And you're the only ones who understand the like,
and they won't judge you.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was such a cool concept.
There's so much in common between Lady Billionaires and moms. There legit is. Like, they're the same. They're just like a little bit different bank account.
Yeah. And again, also a sense of community, because it's like, it's not shocking that all of our like billionaire companies were like, paid double a living wage, had family leave,
childcare, like
universal health care,
ethical practices.
Right. It's like building a community, like the moms build community, like these companies had like their own communities. Like there's obviously like a theme. Like we take care of each other.
Yeah. And we just want, and I think for me as a writer, like I want people to feel seen in my books, even if it's not like, I am not, full disclosure, folks, I'm not a Lady Billionaire. But I mean, universe. I mean, we can all manifest it together right now. If you're
manifesting,
manifestation.
I read those books, and you see struggles, you see self-doubt, you see loneliness and isolation, because when you do a certain thing in a certain way, sometimes that can be inherently isolating. And so I think that is what makes the fictionalization of these complex female relationships so powerful for the reader. And I know that they're hard to write, and I know it's a big project to undertake with others, but it is so worth it just to hear from people that like, I feel seen. This is the hard stuff. And like, friendships aren't always roses. Sometimes friends say hard stuff to each other, and that's something you have to deal with, or they disagree. And I think the more that we can normalize that in a romance, that the journey is about falling in love with yourself. It's about falling in love with your people. And like, if there's a man or woman that you're falling in love with too, great. Let's do all the things and have everything that we can possibly have. But yeah, I also think that one of the fun things about when you mentioned Booksmart, I love Booksmart, and you're right, they do hype each other up. And so I think having hype people in your life is really important. And I think that's partially why I loved writing. I mean, it took us over a year to write this series. I think that's why I love doing it so much, because we are all human beings, and it is human nature to doubt yourself.
Mhm.
And it is human nature to worry if you're doing enough. And it is, and then when you add to that, we're all women. And so we've been conditioned our entire lives to believe that, like, we're not really good enough, and this isn't really going to work, and you should probably just doubt yourself because, and so having 3 other women that I'm working with every single day and picking up my phone and being like, I peed a little, that scene you wrote was so funny.
It's so true.
You know, hype each other up, get in each other's faces. You know, there's a scene. Okay, first of all, full disclosure, I could talk about the Barbie movie for the next 7 hours. I will not. I will spare.
Girl, same. I could write a dissertation on that movie.
Big time Barbie fan.
There is a scene in the Barbie movie that has really stuck with me. And it's a throwaway scene. It doesn't involve Margot Robbie or anything. There's like a montage in the beginning of Barbie Land and like all the Barbies just being awesome. And there's this scene where they're giving out Nobel Prizes. And the announcer goes, and the Nobel Prize goes to Barbie. And she gets up and she goes, thank you. I worked really hard. I deserve this. And
yes,
we text that in our little author text chain. We text that to each other all the time. We have really been overwhelmed by the response to this series. I'm so proud of how well it's doing and all the wonderful people. And it's kind of like, I'm sitting here being like, I never would have achieved this on my own. I have these wonderful people to thank for pushing me along the way. And it's hard to remember sometimes about what we did to get here, and that, we do deserve it, and that we are going to hype each other up and remind ourselves every damn day of that. And so
you are part of it, and they are part of it, each of you individually. So you have to remember, like, I did this. Like, this wouldn't have worked without me in this group too.
Right.
And so having people that will tell you that when you need to hear it is one of the most valuable things ever. And so that's what we tried to do with the friendship in the books. And that's what we're trying to do in our real life friendship. And again, it's not perfect, but I want that example in the universe. You know, I want people to read this and be like, yeah, I'm going to text my best friend right now and tell her that she is a beautiful bad bitch today. Like, done.
As we all should.
Yes.
In the spirit of Galentine's Day.
Yes.
Which I know isn't technically today, but like, whatever. It's
whatever.
It's
every day of the year is like a day to hype up
every
your
day.
friends.
Yeah.
Every day. It's so true. Kathryn, I know you kind of touched on Wild Open Hearts, but do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
I mean, I think we pretty much covered it. It was you know, I think just the ability to write a group of friends who understood the like intricacies and nuances of like such a unique position in the world. Like, they understood their privilege, their power. They also understood the really, really hard times that they couldn't always share with people. And then, like, the reason that we talked about this with Pippa was like, if you're going to date a man raised in this society where it's usually like you need to be making a certain amount of money, like what kind of man would she find? And I know for me, like, some of the stuff that I had to rewrite over and over again was because I always choose the hardest thing. So I was like, oh, I'll just choose 2 couples with like a gigantic financial disparity and make it all about power dynamics. And so I really had to work really hard at embodying like Luna kind of being shitty about how much money she had, and Beck being like, I don't have a mansion, sorry. And I really had to be like, if you were writing it from the other way, if Beck had the mansion and Luna didn't, she would be like, you're kind of a dick, like, see ya. And so they had to kind of like apologize a lot to each other. They had to like talk through like the money issues. And those are things that like Luna was really bolstered by having this group of women who could hear her out and like understood where she was coming from. So I think that it was a really powerful experience, again, of like what we can do in community, you know, it's so powerful.
It's so true. And I know we mentioned dogs, and there are in fact dogs in Kathryn's book.
100%. Yeah. It's just I just wanted to write like the guy Opie from Sons of Anarchy, like holding a dog. Do you know what I mean? Like that's all I wanted to do, was to be like, what if he had a dog, you know? But also it's like, his storyline was also about community. You know, it just repeats itself. It's like, really, romance is about, you know?
It's so true. Well, and I'm just going to do a little shameless self-plug as well, in that my first 2 books are very much not about girl gangs, but my next series that I'm doing is a small town baseball series set in Oregon. And yes, it is very much about the team and like their community. I'm pitching it as like Ted Lasso meets Bull Durham. So like all the sports minus the toxicity.
Yeah, that's what we want.
Right. I'm like, do these men want to have margaritas and watch movies together? Absolutely. Like, why wouldn't they? But I also have kind of unintentionally, as I've been working on the first book, started to create a community of both men and women, but a core group of 4 women who, all have very different experiences. And my first heroine is kind of discovering adulthood very late in life because she comes from a family of expectations and tradition. And is like breaking away from that and doing a lot of things that many of us do when we're 18, 19, 20 for the first time in her life. And thankfully, she has a good group of girlfriends to kind of help her with that. And she also realizes, like, I don't know if I've ever really had a group of friends before. Like, I've had people that I've competed with, and I've had people that we were sorority sisters, but they don't support me. Like, they haven't been there for me the way that these women I met 10 days ago have. So I love seeing different iterations of community and friendship. And it doesn't have to be the people that you've known for years and years and years. It can be people that you do just meet and have this instant bond and connection with. So that's my plug. I'll put it up here. The first book is called Hit It and Quit It. And that's
nice.
I'm so excited for you.
Oh, thank you.
I'm like so excited.
I'm taking a page out of Pippa's book to have crazy fun mascots, and their mascot is the roasters. So they're all about coffee.
Yay! That's hilarious. I love baseball. I love baseball so much.
Anybody who's read you will know.
I'm like, my hockey books probably didn't get the hockey right, but my baseball books, they got the baseball right.
I have a baseball on my bookshelf that's from Pippa that has her like mascot on the baseball.
Yeah.
On my book. It's the swag. Oh, that's what we really do it for, right? It's the swag.
I know. I have another team coming up, and I don't know what the mascot is. I know what the team name is, but I don't know what the mascot is.
You'll figure it out.
Yeah, it's been sitting with me for like 8 months. Someone else is going to have to explain this to me because it's not up here.
Yeah, this year, by the way, is like the year of baseball romance, because ever since I've announced my series, I've talked to at least 5 or 6 other authors who are all doing baseball romance this year. I don't know why.
My 4th baseball romance is basically Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, except I wrote it a year before they hooked up. So guys, I was just manifesting. But it was
the world thanks you. The world thanks you.
Welcome.
You did it, girl.
No, but it's been funny because I've been like, that has not seen a super big increase in sales. So it's like people just don't know that that's what it is, or they don't care because it's not football, which is fine. But I'm like, sign me up for some baseball cross promo because I love baseball romances. Love baseball romances.
Do it.
Yeah, I know so many people who are writing baseball. Everyone's saying baseball is the new hockey. So
is it because of the bananas?
No, I think it's
I don't know, but I love them.
I think it's the tight pants.
I think that definitely is part of my book.
Baseball games are outdoors. It's like summer sticky evenings. There's something like inherently sexy about that.
Yeah, it's nostalgia.
Yeah.
I also took great inspiration from, I don't know, like even if you're not a San Francisco Giants fan, you might be familiar with Gabe Kapler, who used to be their manager. And if you don't know who I'm talking about, Google one photo of this man.
Let me just say, we had him first. He was a member of the Boston Red Sox when he played baseball. And he actually looks better now. I'll tell you that. But
find one with him in the glasses. Like,
his glasses are very cute.
The hat, the glasses, the beard, and the tattoos. That's the coach for this team that I'm writing. And I was like,
cute.
I don't even care.
Coach getting a book, Kelly.
Absolutely.
I thought you were going to start talking about their female coach, about Alyssa.
Oh, who I do love. I mean,
I'm going to write one of those one day. I've got a female coach in my
should.
Fireball series.
Perfect. Yeah, see, it's already set up. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
No, I'm very much looking forward to baseball romance being like the 2024 thing, because I don't know anything about hockey. So
I go to hockey. I've learned more about hockey games since I wrote my last hockey romance. Like it's been 3 years since my last hockey romance came out. Okay. And like the whole hockey romance craze, like no lift and sales for the thrusters. Like they're steady, they're good, they're fine. But it's like, it's so funny. It's like, do I just hit trends before they're trends? And then everybody's like, oh, I've already been there, done that. I'm not a trendsetter, guys. Do not follow me. I am not a trendsetter.
I disagree. Well, and I don't want to consider it a trend, but I, for one, am hoping that we will start to see more female friendship centric romances moving forward. Because yes, we love the teams and we love the brothers, the 8 brothers and 1 sisters in every romance family. However, I, for one, would love to read more books like the Blue Water Billionaires, like the Mom-Coms. And I think a lot of writers are really into that idea right now. So hopefully this is just the start. There's many more to come. And yeah, I think that's a good place to wrap it up for us. So everybody, before I let you all go, just give a few words on where the fine folks listening and watching at home can find you. And if you have something that's coming up soon, I know Daphne's, book is like just out in the world. So feel free to highlight a new release too. But Daphne, why don't you start?
Sure. So I just published on February 8th, Mother Hater, which is book 4 in the Mom series.
Hell
a series of interconnected, hilarious single mom rom-coms. First book is Mother Faker by Brittany Nicole, fake marriage with her billionaire boss. Second book is Mother Maker with Jenny Barrow, which is accidental pregnancy with a baseball player. Third book is Mother Pucker by Swati M.H., which is a hockey romance reverse age gap. And my book, Mother Hater, is book 4 in the series. It is an enemies to lovers, grumpy single mom romance. These books are available on Amazon, in KU. Audio is coming February 20th. We've got Joe Arden, Teddy Hamilton, Samantha Brentmore, and Maxine Mitchell narrating these audios. I have the proof files on my phone. People, they are so hot and so amazing. I just want to say thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Pippa. Thank you, Kathryn. I'm thrilled to be here. And thank you to my girls, Brittany, Jenny, and Swati, for literally changing my life by doing this project.
We're thrilled to have you here. Ooh, that sounds so good. The audio is going to be hot. I recognize those names.
Yeah. Big Maxine Mitchell fans.
We did it in duet, which I had my doubts about. Yes. But when you write a banter heavy book in duet, it just hits so different.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And those are the ones that hook me the most. So I'm excited for that. Kathryn, how about you?
Yeah, so if folks want to find me, I'm most on Instagram. In fact, so much so that please, if you see me there, tell me to go away, because I'm always like, should I do 12 more stories? So I'm just there as like author and Kathryn Nolan, or Kathryn Nolan Romance, I think. And then my reader group is the Hippie Chicks. I had a very spicy holiday novella come out called
with a gorgeous cover.
A gorgeous cover designed by Stacey Hart. I don't know if you guys have heard of her. Designed by Stacey Hart. And it is about a wedding planner who is in love with her best friends, who are the bride and groom. It's an MFF spicy romance. Kelly has a copy. It's so good.
I had mine right there. I had to get it.
Yeah. It'll take you like 90 minutes to read it, but it's super fun. It's set over New Year's Eve, so it's like a really fun. It's very sweet. It's about queer joy and going after your dreams. And then in June, I have an untitled bodyguard romance coming out. So it's about a very stern and extremely serious rule-following bodyguard named Elijah, classic, and his very messy, very flirty, very charming disaster bisexual of a client. His name is Elijah. And they get into a bunch of like dangerous situations, and Elijah has to like throw his body, over Luke, constantly to
Stern brunch daddy for the win.
Yes, it's Stern brunch daddy with hot mess, like hot idiot disaster bisexual, which is like my as a hot idiot disaster bisexual myself, I've like embodied this character. So
a masterful combination.
Incredible.
And that was June, you said?
Yeah, that's what Tim and I have been talking about, was having it come out in June. So I'm writing the second draft right now. So
yay. Okay, cool. I'm gonna look out for more on that. And Pippa?
I just had 3 weeks ago the final book in my 3 BFFs in a wedding series, The Bride's Runaway Billionaire, come out. This one is the runaway bride goes on her solo honeymoon, trips over her favorite celebrity crush, has a fling with him, and accidentally gets pregnant, but can't notify him. And so he shows up a year and a half later wanting to be a dad and wanting to be involved in their lives. So it hits a whole lot of stuff. And he has to win over all of her friends. So
of course.
That one just came out. The trilogy is complete, which I think is just like utterly fun and amazing. I don't think I've ever written a trilogy and released it within a year before, so that like I actually completed a series. And this one actually also ties into my book, The Last Eligible Billionaire, which is the book that has the dog and the dildo in it. So it's a lot of fun. And in April, I have a book coming out. I just got the final cover this week, and it is so cute. And I like this book that's coming in April. I think I love it more than I love anything I've ever written in my entire life. The banter is crazy. It's set in Copper Valley, which is my town where like the thrusters and the fireballs are, but it's brand new people, brand new sport. I do not currently have plans to write the sport team. But we all know it's anyway. Like
smash up 1 year later.
He is like a big burly athlete who is trying to like legendary level, trying to hang on to his career. She is like, you mentioned Ted Lasso, right? If Jamie Tart had a sister, this is Jamie Tart's sister dating Roy Kent. In season 1.
Yeah.
But set in rugby.
Girl,
set in rugby.
I'm picking up what you're putting down. Okay.
And like it. And he has a mustache and she hates it. That's my favorite part.
So good.
Like they have a complicated situationship. It's just
I'm obsessed. I have to say too.
Oh, wait, so you see the cover. The cover.
Does he have a mustache on it? No, don't tell me. I want to wait. I want to wait and see.
Catherine's seen the cover. Catherine is the cover.
I've seen the cover. Guys, I screamed. Actually, it came through. I was like on a call with someone and it came through my phone and I had to be like just not me gasping for any reason.
Like I love all the books that I've ever written because like I know that I put heart and I put humor in them. This one's next level, and I'm just so excited. More details are coming in about a month.
I'm excited for you. That sounds like fun. Well, and I have to say, you mentioned mustaches, and it literally just made me think that I just launched a reader group on Facebook. Like we have like 80 members. Like, I mean, it's a very small group. But one of the things we do is Mustache Monday, and it's elimination style throughout the week of a grid of men with mustaches. And this week we did football players this week because it's all leading up to the Super Bowl. Yeah. Last week was musicians with mustaches. So
like they're everywhere these days. It's like the 80s all over again. And I say that as someone who grew up in the 80s
and
with
people get
with mustaches and stuff.
People have very, very heated ideas about facial hair.
I mean, I do too. Like legit, my husband, he retired from the military like almost 2 years ago. What do dudes do when they retire from the military? Big bushy beards, right?
It's really bushy.
So he's like, does she mock his mustache all through the book because you don't like my facial hair?
Oh my God.
No.
You're like, I don't know.
It has nothing to do with you. But if you want to think it does, okay, fine. But yeah, no, the mustaches are everywhere. And I was like, will mustaches still be a thing next April? Because I wrote this book September, October last year. And like, yes, mustaches will still be a thing.
I think so. I think so. This will be our last question and then we'll wrap things up. Jules asked, what is the favorite single female friendship you have written? I'll say and or read. And I know that we've highlighted several of our own. So like if there is one you want to mention from another author, great. But if you have another one that you haven't mentioned, feel free.
I'm just thinking. I was like looking at my.
Yeah.
Looking at the books.
Looking at the books.
I'll start because it's fresh in my head because we were talking about the Blue Water Billionaires. I also thought of another Blue Water Billionaire author, Claire Kingsley.
Mm-hmm.
And Claire has a series that I adore called the Dirty Martini Running Club.
That's a really good example.
Yes. And I just remember when I read the first book. In fact, I want to say I read the first book. I was sent the first book in only my second year of Boobies and Noobies. And I read that first. And then later that year, we did Blue Water Billionaires. And so that was kind of my intro to the what Ariana and I called the core four, which is Pippa, Kathryn, Lucy, and Claire. And so we that friendship though, they jog and then they like get together and drink. I was like, who the hell is like drinking martinis after they go running? This is insane. But God, I loved those women and their books are so fun. So I do really enjoy the friendships in the Dirty Martini Running Club. Who else?
I'm having such a hard time. Like you asked me what I've read, and I just
it's hard on the spot.
It's hard on the spot.
But I will say, I love Max Monroe. I think they do really hilarious books, and I think they do really fun female friendships. I'm blanking on the specific book I'm thinking about, but generally speaking, I really love their take on many things, especially female friendships.
Yeah.
Well, like the Banking the Billionaire series.
Yes.
Tapping the Billionaire series.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a good one. I was going to say, like, it's repeating the same thing, but can I talk about how in the Blue Water Billionaire series, we had ourselves as cameos in the very last scene at Drag Queen Brunch every time. And so I felt like that's an additional female friendship that we managed to
Right. It was friendships on friendships, y'all.
I mean, that is something I will say that I do think is really cool and unique to the three of you is that not only have you written these books that center around female friendships, and you've also written them with a group of friends. And so it's very meta. I mean, it's like the inception of female friendships, right? Like this, we're friends writing friends, and some of whom are also writing friends. So I do think that there is something really cool about that.
Yeah, I think, and Jules is gonna know this one. I think some of my favorite friendships that I've written would be the characters of Josie and Lucia, who are in Landslide and Bohemian, respectively. They are best friends. Lucia's a supermodel, and Josie became her best friend because they met when Josie was doing her makeup. And Josie is like a little bit older than her. When she met Lucia, she was like young. You know, part of Lucia's story is about what it's like to be a model, which is like, it's not fun. And in Landslide, what you know about Josie when you first meet them is like Lucia's sitting with her on her bachelorette party. It's just like the two of them because Josie's in a like a emotionally abusive like gaslighting relationship. And to me, it's like a really like, this is like a kind of like heartbreaking part of female friendship where like Lucia's sitting there with her and she's like, you know, you sure you don't want to do anything else for your bachelor party? Like bachelorette party, it's not really like you. And Josie's just like, no, this is it. This is all I wanted. This is what Clark wanted. So like, this is what we're doing. And Lucia says like, you know, you could say anything and I would just like drive us out of here. Like, just, I'll drive us like anywhere you want to go. Like just say the word and I'll drive you. And Josie's like, why would you say that? I don't want to go, you know? But like, it's such a like, I don't know. It's just such this like thing about female friendship where it's like, yeah, but like,
it's the definition of a ride or die.
Yeah, like
literally.
Yes.
Do you need a ride or do we need to go bury a body?
Yeah,
like,
I know. Oh, it makes me like so emotional. It's like these like special moments. Also, like, okay, this is a little bit weird, but can I read you guys? Can I read you guys a poem?
Yes.
Oh my God. Okay.
Write this poem. I did not write this poem.
Okay.
I did not write this poem. I just saw this yesterday and I was like, this is perfect for our podcast. There is a poet. Her name is 𝒐𝒐 𝒐𝒂𝒂𝒚. I don't know if you guys follow her on Instagram. She's amazing. I love her poetry. Okay, she wrote this poem called The Bridesmaid Speech, and now I'm gonna like cry all the way through it. This is like so random, guys. So the podcast.
We will cry with you.
I apologize.
Solidarity.
Okay. It's called The Bridesmaid Speech. I don't know if I can read it. Okay. Wait, I don't know if I can read it. I'm gonna like cry. Okay. Because I cry every bridesmaid speech. I like cry all the way through. I have known her all her life, and I don't know if I can do it, guys. And by that, I mean,
it to me. I'll read it. Give it to
you
me.
You want me to send it to you?
Yeah.
Wait, do you cry? Because I cry really easily. You can ask Pippa, she knows.
I can probably make it through most of it. We'll see. And I'm coming into it fresh.
Okay. If I text it to you on Facebook, okay, I'm sending you like a screenshot.
Send it to me.
I was like, now I actually
I'm
because I was like, oh, this would be like so beautiful. And then I was like, I don't think I can read this.
Okay. And one of my best friends is getting married next year too. So this
this
is good practice. All right.
Okay.
The bridesmaid speech. I have known her all her life. And by that, I mean, I've seen her in the impossible light of girlhood, the spaces in between, the car on the way to the birthday dinner, the moment before the photograph. I have stood outside the bathroom stall, held tight while her shoulders shook with sorrow. I've watched joy arrive, midnight and unexpected, repeated stories until they were my own. It's true, there is a cost to this devotion, but I'll let you in on a little secret. There is very little women choose to keep from one another. How lucky are we to know a love like this? Yeah.
I know.
That's beautiful. Great.
I know.
That is really
I know. Like
we don't usually end podcast episodes crying and reading poetry, but maybe we should.
I know. Just like halfway through, I was like, "Shit, I think we have to read this poem." It's like
there's something so unique about the way, and it hurts me that men don't have this. That I feel like so many men. Now I'm gonna cry. That I feel like so many men don't have these relationships that women do with each other. That the thing that a lot of people will talk about is you'll meet women in the bathroom at like a sporting event or a concert, and all of a sudden you're trading bracelets or phone numbers. And I think it's so unique that this is something that and so special that this is something that we experience. And it pains me that this is something that men don't experience the same way, especially because they could if they wanted to.
Yeah.
Wow. That's kind of a bleak, but lovely note to end on.
I know. That is Kate. Her name is 𝒐𝒐 𝒐𝒂𝒂𝒚. She writes her poetry. She wrote a What Kind of Woman? I Hope This Finds You Well, and a book called 𝑦𝒐𝒕𝒉. And this is like a forthcoming. I hope it's okay that we read it. It was on her Instagram page.
We're giving credit. We're telling everybody who it belongs
Kate, it's
to.
𝒐𝒐 𝒐𝒂𝒂𝒚. She's so beautiful. She used to write these found poems where like she gets a lot of like hate from men in the DMs, usually about her weight and etc. And she would take them and she would like delete the words and make her own poem out of what they said to her.
I love that.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
I love that. It's like when people get like bad reviews and then they like turn it into a t-shirt. I'm just like, I love that you're making money off of this person's shit take. Like, fantastic.
Oh yeah, I did that with somebody told me. You want to end on a happier note? You know what I'm going to talk about, don't you, Kelly? We hosted a birthday party for one of my kids at a rock climbing wall a few years ago. And while we were there, one of the moms walks up to me and says, "So how's the romance writing going?" And I was like, "It's going really good." And she's like, "How many books do you write?" And I was like, 4 to 6 a year. And she's like, "Oh my God, that's a lot." But I guess that makes sense because romance novels are just trash. Like, I am the most non-confrontational person you will ever meet in your life. Like if I confront you, I have been pushed so far past my limits that I have been like, fuck this shit, we're going to the mat. You know, like it takes a lot.
Yeah.
It takes a lot for me to do what I did in that moment, which was to look her dead in the eye. And I said, yes, I write trash. She went redder than a tomato. And then she dug deeper. It was like the shovel just kept.
Oh yeah.
She was like, I don't mean your books. I just mean the other ones.
All the other ones.
They're
trash.
You're not like other romance authors, Pippa. You're special. You're different.
You're not like the other girls.
Yeah.
Like
You actually
that.
wake up and you look like this.
That's the place to end on, right there.
Yeah, we made t-shirts. I put them up in my store. I write trash. I read trash. And like, yeah, it's been.
Yeah. There's the moral of today's discussion. We're not like the other girls. We're not like the other authors.
We're petty.
I know. I always like when it's like, I'm not like other girls. I'm actually worse. So
Perfect.
You think they're bad?
That is not someone that I would write into my female friendship story. Unless it was a redemption story.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, it's so funny because I know before we started talking, I was like, oh, this is going to be a little mini, like 45-minute discussion. Silly me for thinking that we could like minimize this conversation. And I'm glad we didn't because it took us in so many different directions. And I'm glad that so many people who are currently watching stuck around with us for it.
thank
You for being here with us.
Yeah, hopefully everybody listening or watching the playback will do the same because I think it's well worth the watch and or listen. So ladies, thank you. Thanks to everybody, listening later and or watching now. Yeah, tune in next month for another topic, another panel, and we'll see you then. Happy Galentine's Day.
Happy Galentine's
Day. Thanks, Kelly.
Yeah, of course. Bye, everybody.
Bye.